Hello, everybody. My name is Chuck Smith. This is my son, Michael. We went back in June. We traveled with a group called David Dean's Mission Possible. Some of you might have heard of David Dean. He's a Christian comic. Really funny guy, and just very genuine. He had been going on mission trips himself, and several of his friends who attend his church said, well, you should set up a mission group yourself, and we'll all go with you. So that's how it started. He's been going for 20 years.
Well, I think it's about 10 years with Mission Possible.
Okay.
But he's been going himself a lot longer.
So, when we went in June to, if you don't know where the Dominican Republic is, the Dominican Republic is on the island of Hispaniola. There's two countries on the island, Haiti on one side and the Dominican Republic on the other. Okay, both very different parts of different countries, but a lot of similarities as well. Our friends, our pastor actually, and we're very close friends with, and his wife were going with this group to Dominican Republic, and their son and Michael are like best friends. So Michael came to us and said, Mom, Dad, I want to go on this mission trip. Okay, great. Michael's been on a couple mission trips before too.
Well,
Down to the Appalachian mountain area, Redbird missions. I don't know if you might have heard of that. Anyways, he said, I want to go. And we said, okay, where's it at? And he said, the Dominican Republic. And I said, where's it at? And so, we did some research, and my wife and I were talking, and I said, I don't know that I feel comfortable sending Michael out of country without us. He's, a little kid. he's only 16. And Todd and Tammy are like family to us. We love them. That we visit with each other all the time, and I trust them with my son. But it's a little different sending your baby overseas. And I thought, well, and Janine says in all her wisdom, well, you go with him. And I said, honey, you know how I feel. I'm not a missionary. I don't go on mission trips. You guys do that. That's great. That's wonderful. She goes, well, pray about it. Fine, I'll pray about it. About 2 weeks later, I came back to her like this. Going on a mission trip. And she goes, I know. So that's how we kind of started off. We had several meetings prior to leaving. David Dean's Mission Possible has teamed up with New Missions, which is another big, large mission organization that does a lot of wonderful work in the DR, the Dominican Republic. One of their big pushes, one of the things they really concentrate on, is setting up schools and education for the children of the DR. And they realized, they've found that by educating the kids, you give them something to aspire to, something to grow. So there's not a lot of industry in the DR. Right now, their biggest export is tourism. Okay, which is a good thing because it brings money into the country. It brings a lot of folks from Europe come over, a lot of folks from Canada, a lot of from the U.S., and that's a great thing. The dark side of that, as we, I don't know, some of you might have heard, when we have big gatherings here, the Super Bowl or things like this, there's also a lot of sex trafficking, and prostitution, unfortunately, is a huge trade in the Dominican Republic. With that, it's not what we think of prostitution like here, 18 and older. It's 12 and older. It's heartbreaking, or younger. It's heartbreaking, the stories that we heard, and we'll share some of those with you. So what New Missions does is try to educate the kids that there's a better way, that it's not just about finding someone that's gonna steal you away to live in the lavish countries in Europe or America or Canada. So when we went, our job, it was weird because when we were preparing and getting ready to go, we really didn't have an agenda. When you think mission trip, we're going to go, we're going to build a house, we're going to we're going to dig a well, we're going to build a food pantry, we're going to do something. And David, when we were talking to him, he said, just you're going to love and play. Might get that. But it was so cool. So one of the first places we went to was Home Village, and it was an abandoned hotel, and you'll see pictures of it. And there are all these children, and none of them look alike. They're all either light skinned or real dark skinned, and they have blue eyes and brown eyes, and just all different variety. Yeah, blonde hair, straight hair, curly hair. And we found out that this hotel, this abandoned hotel, is where a lot of the prostitutes live. And they sleep during the day because they're working all night. And their kids are the children of Europeans and Canadians and Americans who have come and taken a part of their trade. And these kids are running around in diapers or underwear or dirty clothes with no one to care for them, no one to love them, no one to guide them. It was amazing. I mean, how they saw us and they just latched onto it. Some of the other places we went, as soon as we got there, the kids were jumping on our backs or grabbing your legs and not letting you go, or little ones, 2 years old, running around and picking you up and you're just carrying them around, because they are like we do, like what's built into us with from God, the desire for us to love God and God to love us back. That bond that we have, they don't have that with an adult, and anyone who's had children or has children or grandchildren, that's all. The kids just want attention and structure and love, and they don't have that. They don't have people to pay attention to them. So we got to just play with them and love them and just give them snacks. We specialized in a couple of places, again, as you'll see, making balloon animals. Our friend Tammy was in charge of our group, the five of us, to come up with a project, a craft to do during different stops. Because they said there's going to be probably 100 kids, no parents, just 100 kids, running around, and some ladies brought nail polish, and they do nail polish or played baseball. That was a big thing. Baseball's very big in the Dominican Republic. For boys, little boys, there's a couple major league players who have escaped the DR. That's their ticket out. So that's a big thing. So we made balloon animals, which was really funny. We thought that the swords would be the big thing, so we started making swords, and we ended up making someone made a flower.
I was you.
Oh, I made a flower.
I was you.
and all the kids loved it. So then the 12, 13-year-old boys are coming over wanting a flower. I thought that was so odd, but they just wanted something nice, something to give their mom, or to show love to her, something like that. So the most emotional day for me personally, and then I'll let Michael talk some, was the Friday.
Yeah.
It was Friday of our trip. It was a week-long trip. My boss, who had gone on a mission trip to Turkey for 6 months, said, I asked him for the time off. He said, sure. He said, you're going on a mission trip? I said, yeah. He goes, for how long? He's thinking months, and I said, 7 days. He goes, I can do a mission trip in 7 days. He went to Turkey for 6 months himself. So, but that Friday, in the morning, we went to visit another group called Cups of Cold Water. And they help build wells and filters for this area of the DR where people kept on getting sick, and they had a clinic that had to be open 7 days a week because people just kept on getting sick from drinking the contaminated water. And they ended up doing some research, bringing engineers in, and finding out that a $39 filter for each house could cure that. And now the medical center is only open 1 day a week.
No, they actually, it got down to 1 day a week. They ended up closing it because it was so slow that now now if they need medical assistance, they can go to the one in the larger village. I mean, this is all one city with valleys of trees, and then on mountain peaks there are villages. And so now they go to another village off the main road for medical help when they need it, and they're using that building now to expand their schools.
So we went and visited them, and they also had a birth clinic that helped teach these kids how to be parents. Okay, and the most heart-wrenching story for me, I have some most of you don't know about. My wife and I have 4 children, ages 19, 17, 14, and 10. And they were telling us the story of a 12-year-old. No, she was 12
when it started.
She was a 12-year-old girl who had gotten pregnant. And we think, oh my gosh, that's terrible. It gets worse. This poor girl had been being sold by her mother to her neighbor for the last 5 years. Okay, and that just tore me up. I mean, I just couldn't stop thinking of my own daughters, my own babies, and I just couldn't imagine. But now she was pregnant, and obviously she doesn't have a good role model to look up to on how to raise her own child. So that was heart-wrenching for me personally. And then the guy who's in charge of the Cups of Cold Water organization told us a story and said, us in the U.S. look at that and think, oh my gosh, you're a prostitute. How dare you? And in the DR, when you have nothing and your children are starving and you have no way of feeding your family, how could you judge them for doing the only thing to put food on the table for their babies? It's not ideal. It's not perfect at all. But it gives, for me, it gave me a different perspective on looking at someone and not judging them, but thinking, well, you could do better. You could do something better. There's what better is there for them to do? That's what these groups do, is they teach them a craft, teach them something, a skill that they can make bracelets or clothing. They have a sewing school to teach these women how to make clothes or make stuff so that they can sell to the tourists on the streets and make money a different way. So that's part of what that organization went to. The second half of the day on Friday, so that was pretty emotional as it was. The second part of the day on Friday, we went to a dump. And it is exactly what it sounds. It's the dump. It's where trash trucks come in and dump the garbage that they collected over the area. At the dump, there are a lot of Haitians live. The dump is surrounded by trees, kind of a very light forest. What happened is when Haiti had the big earthquake several years ago, the people left Haiti to go to the Dominican Republic for a better life. Well, they got to the Dominican Republic, they snuck over the border, and they found out that the government of the Dominican Republic had set up a minimum wage, okay? But the minimum wage only applied to Dominicans, okay? So they went to businesses and said, you have to pay a Dominican a minimum of $7 a day. Okay, that's the least amount you can pay a Dominican. A Haitian, you can pay them whatever you want. Okay, so Haitians were getting jobs, getting at a lot less, $3 a day. Okay, and Haitians, that created an anger towards the Haitians from the Dominicans, because they're saying, well, you're stealing my job because you're willing to work for less than what I'm willing to work for. Okay. And so a lot of Dominicans then wouldn't allow Haitians to live with them and around them. So they have no place to go. So they live in this little forest on the outskirts of this dump. Most of them sleep sitting up, leaning against trees. Some of them have some cardboard or something they've collected from the dump to protect themselves against rain or storms or whatever. Doesn't get real cold. The weather's actually pretty nice there. It's in the Caribbean. But to eat, yeah, flies. We get there, and we're going to serve soup, hot soup. It's because they can pack a lot of vitamins and minerals into the soup. Yeah, it was the hottest day that we were there, and water. I forget how many gallons of water that we were serving the Dominicans. And, some of them were wearing bottles as shoes. I mean, and there were little kids, and there was a pregnant woman there. And we get off our bus, and there's flies, just big, thick flies, flying all over the place. The stench you could imagine, at a hot, humid dump, just wasn't all that pleasant. And the people were, just as friendly as can be. We're there to serve them, and they just line up, and they're shoving bottles that they had collected, empty 2-liter bottles they had collected from the dump, filling them up with water. Lord knows what was in them before, but it didn't matter. It was water. They had water. The closest place they could get water was a couple miles down.
The dump
at a pump
itself, legally, because they're Haitians, legally has to provide them with water, because they're technically working for the dump, even though the dump doesn't pay them directly. So the people could go down this 3-mile trek down to the front to get some water, carry it all from a pump, carry it all the way back, and then have the water. And these are malnourished people who their only source of money is to work all day and sort out garbage to try and get recycled.
Yeah, they recycle. What they do, working at the dump, is they sort through recyclable materials, and then recycling companies come in and they'll pay them a quarter, 50 cents for a day's worth of work. So then we had sandwiches for them as well, and it was just that first part of the day and the second part of the day, I was just emotionally drained at the end of the day. Getting the new iPhone for me then wasn't as big of a deal. Making sure I had internet access at my hotel wasn't so big of a deal anymore. Just to think, New Missions, when they're setting up these schools, are setting them up because there is no public school system in the Dominican Republic. If you go to school, it's a private school. You go because you can pay to go. New Mission sets it up. We ended up sponsoring a child. This is our child that we sponsor, Yesenia. Yanceli, sorry, Yanceli. For us, it's like $30 a month, and that allows her to be able to go to school and get an education. Provides her with a uniform, her books. It's a Christian education, so they work on that as well. What else? She has activities to do, so she can learn that there's something more than the Dominican fairy tale, which I'll let Michael tell you about the Dominican fairy tale. it's the fairy tale that most families in the, not all, most families in the Dominican Republic tell their daughters from a young age. So.
First, I want to say the dump. Like my dad had said, he was emotionally drained after that day. I actually was one of the people that actually took we had sandwiches and water. We were trying to get it out because someone would take a sandwich, stick it in their shirt, go around and try and get a sandwich from someone else. So they're trying to take the people that were still working. So I was going out, and I saw this guy who, obviously he needed water. He looked thirsty. He was working hard. He had a couple bags of bottles that he was like carrying on his head. And my friend and I go up to him and offer him water, and he sets down the bag and he kind of puts it really close to him, and then he reaches out really far and takes the water and thanks us. And then he picks up the bag and walks away. Because he doesn't want to let us touch his bag, because that bag, that giant trash bag, industrial sized trash bag of bottles, he's probably worked a lot of time on, might get him $1. Probably not even, no, but and I told my friend, I would have offered to help him, but I don't think he would have let me, because he doesn't want to risk me taking the bag and leaving, saying, "Oh, thank you for this bag, you're out your money," And these people, are just scrambling to get food and water, and there's only so much you can do because you have a limited amount of food and water you can give them. They might not let you help them. You can't dig through the trash because you're probably going to get sick. Because there, in most places, except at the tourist hotels, you do not throw your waste in the toilet. Toilet paper goes in the trash can after it's been used, which means they're digging through the toilet paper too. They're digging through all of the waste. And this is not a very sanitary in mind country. So, they have nothing. They're risking their lives, essentially. If they get sick, they don't have medical help to do this. I get back to the hotel, I won't even talk to my dad on the way home. Not even my dad, not my best friend, not my pastor, not any of these people I've just spent a week becoming very, very close to. I won't talk to anyone, not even a word. Not even a word to say, I don't want to talk. Because I can't look at the face of another human being and not have disgust filling it. How can we live in a world where that is okay? Because that exists because of the racism between Dominicans and Asians. That's why that exists. That and love. I often compare it pre-civil rights America. Haitians are the blacks, Dominicans are the whites. That's essentially how bad it is, but with a lot more poverty and a lot less technology, despite being years in the future. And then that night, there was another place we'd gone to a couple times. La Siena, that's what it was called. We went there for a kindergarten graduation. And I was still not willing to talk to people. And I get there and I'm sitting there and I see all these little kids who have nothing, happiest kids in the whole dang world. I often joke, you could throw them into a ditch and they would smile. You couldn't make these kids sad. They were happy about everything. And I looked at them and I'm like, wow, that's why. Because, yes, that exists, but we're not okay with it. We're changing that slowly. As it may be, we're changing that. These kids have nothing, and they're graduating kindergarten, and they have nice dresses, nice clothes for the guys, and they, over the top of that, they have robes. They actually have graduation robes that are fit, tiny little ones, look like they're balls. They've got their graduation caps, and they threw up their caps, and the guy taking the picture said he didn't get a good enough picture. So my group got up, and we put the hats back on the kids so they could do it again. Get a good picture.
At every level, and the reason they celebrate graduation the way they do, and you'll see in the pictures, is every level of education that they go up, they celebrate immensely. So graduation from kindergarten, yes, we joke about it here, you know, oh, you're graduating from kindergarten, but for there, it's a really big deal because they've learned their letters, they've learned, you know, things that they would have been totally unheard of.
And they might not graduate from high school.
Right, and graduation
might not
from
have a
fifth
high
grade,
school at all.
was it fifth grade?
I think they said that they don't actually celebrate it yet until they graduate from high school, but they rarely actually
So
make it.
every level of moving up in education is very celebrated there because, you know, you may be the first member of your family to graduate, you know, high school or seventh grade or whatever.
The Dominican fairy tale is very popular among the more poverty-stricken communities. Basically, what it is. First of all, show of hands. How many of you are parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, older cousin, or you have a little kid somewhere in the world that you kind of like?
Kind of.
I mean, okay. So how many of you, either wanted or still want, just the best thing that kid can have? They want, them to have a good life. They want them to do their best in life. Yeah? Pretty much everybody, yeah? Okay. These parents, okay, this is the mom and the dad if he's around. He might be from America or England or Europe or something like that and not even know this kid exists. What they tell their children is the Dominican fairy tale, that they will be pretty. They want their daughters to be pretty. Because if the daughters are pretty, then they can grow up and they can go work on the streets and find a nice rich man from one of these countries and make him happy enough that he will take her away and marry her, and then she can send some money back to their families so their family can eat and she's escaped this place. How many of you think you would want that for that kid? That's what they encourage. Because they don't know any better. They don't know the difference. So that's one of the things we want to do. We want to share with them, there is another option. But only if someone goes there and shares that. They don't know that they don't know that God has a better plan for them. They don't know that there's other ways of making a living, other ways of having a life. So that's one thing I think that was important for us to share because, my pastor brought up one more thing. My pastor shares a story with us all the time, and I love this story. A story about a man walking on a beach, and he sees a kid far down the beach, frantically running back and forth along the beach. This man thinks, what the heck is this kid doing? And he gets closer, he sees that the tide is washing thousands, hundreds and thousands of starfish up on the beach. They're stranded on the beach now. And this kid's there running back and forth, grabbing a starfish, running back to the water and throwing it in. And the man gets up to this kid and he's like, kid, you've been running, and you've been doing this for quite a while now, and you've barely made a dent. What makes you think you can make a difference? You can't make a difference with all these starfish. And the boy looks at him, picks up one more starfish, throws it in the water, and says, it sure made a difference with that one, didn't it? And that's what we try to do, is just make a difference for that one person.